I'm going to title the message, 6 Facts Before 36 AD. Now, I'm assuming a 30 AD date for Jesus' crucifixion is by far the most popular date. Some good scholars think 33. So if it's 33, the lecture simply becomes 6 Facts Before 39 AD. The point is, it's 6 years later. And I want to evidence these 3 facts by doing good history. And when you try to do good history, there's a number of things you need. Let me tell you 3 ways to do 3 different needs in history. Number 1, whenever you can get eyewitness sources, that's excellent. That's a good starting point. Secondly, I used to say in the old days, think of the 3 E's. 1 E is eyewitness, 2 is early. Now, in the old days, I'd say number 3 is the empty tomb. So you'd have a good start there if you did early eyewitness and empty tomb. But for today, early, eyewitness, and number 3, multiple sources, multiple independent sources. Now, you have to think the way the critics think, because Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John is not a 4 count. A source that's in Matthew, Mark, and Luke is a 1 count, because scholars, even evangelicals, think Matthew and Luke got it from Mark. That's a 1 count. John's independent. That's 2. If you find it in the book of Acts, that's 3. If it's an epistle of Paul, like 1 Corinthians 15, that's 4. And the more sources, the better. So those are 3 ways. Early eyewitness and multiple checks and balances, multiple sources, the way critics accept it. Because if you're just going to ask Christians to do it, all we have to do is cite verses. But we're not trying to talk there. We're trying to play their language. And besides, early eyewitness and multiple sources, good argument anyway. So, early and eyewitness are not always the same. You might think, well, early eyewitness, that would be the same thing, right? Isn't any early? No. I'll give you an example. My favorite example is, I heard of a guy one day who was writing his memoirs of World War II from the 1940s. He lived them in the 40s, so he was an eyewitness. He wrote his memoirs of World War II in the 90s. Early, but not exactly, decent, but, eyewitness, but not exactly early. It's about 50 years later. You go, well, that's the same distance as between Jesus and some of the Gospels. Well, I didn't say it was horrible. I just said it wasn't really early. We wouldn't say, Mark's pretty early, but Matthew and Luke and John are not really what people would claim early in historical terms. They're early enough to count. And then multiple sources. Do we have multiple sources for this? And I'm going to say that these 6 arguments I'm going to give you, they fulfill all of those. Early, eyewitness with what we call multiple attestation, multiple sources for the reports. Okay? So having introduced that, I'll go like I'm doing the timeline, but I'm only going to be doing a little part of it. 6 years. Either 30 to 36 or 33 to 39, same thing. All right, so Jesus is crucified and died. Now, he claims to be the Son of God, if you follow my early argument over there, a little bit before the cross. He claims to be the Son of God in several ways, and I've already given you 3. He claims to be the Son of God. He claims to be the Son of Man, which is his most popular name for himself. And if you go back and read Daniel 7, you'll see how special the Son of Man is, who he is. And thirdly, we have sources where in the sources that record this, they use all kinds of multiple things. For example, Jesus is called Abba. Abba is Aramaic. An Aramaic word is there for a reason. It's believed it was recorded because it was an actual word of Jesus. The Greek is not Jesus' exact words. I think most all of us know that. But Abba is probably his exact words. And when he, one occasion, casts out a demon, another one heals, it gives the Aramaic. The Aramaic was remembered because they evidenced miracles. And I might surprise you, but the vast majority of New Testament critics today, vast majority, even agnostic and atheist New Testament critics, will grant that Jesus was a healer and an exorcist. You go, well, that's stupid. Why would they think he's an exorcist when they don't believe in demons? They didn't say they believe in demons. What they said was that occasion in the Gospels is really what happened in history. The people thought they were demons, but you don't have a photograph of demons. Jesus thought he was cast. This is the way that liberals would explain it. Jesus thought he was casting out a demon. The people thought he was, but the incident is historical. That incident happened. And Marcus Borg, he passed away a few years ago, but very far to the left, Marcus Borg said, whatever your feeling about miracles is, it's almost impossible from the historical data to say that Jesus was not a healer and an exorcist. We have plenty of data for that. So this is really good stuff to hear the critics say that. So you can start here, 30 or 33, and I'm going to go just 6 years. That's early, right? 6 years is pretty early. Yeah. I'm going to use eyewitness sources, which critics allow, and give you multiple sources for these three. So we'll be doing history today. Okay, first fact. Now I'm going to assume the resurrection. That's point one. That's not an evidence for the resurrection, but I'm going to say crucifixion happened. Virtually nobody disputes it. You can count the well-known scholars. I'm only talking about scholars today, not people who think Jesus never lived and they don't have any training, they don't have any backup, Bart Ehrman, the atheist New Testament scholar, goes off on these people. They're called mythicists. That's their view for what they think Jesus never lived. Bart Ehrman says, there's a lot of you guys today. There's a reason none of you have teaching positions in accredited universities and seminaries. It's because you guys don't know your stuff. He literally says this for 20 pages. He says, and some of you cry because you think we should be using your text. No, we're not going to use your text. They're not scholarly texts. And he says, don't think you have a foothold in New Testament thought. You don't. You don't even have a toehold. He tells the mythicists this. And then when they talk, they'll say, well, I don't know why Bart doesn't listen to us. He's already told you why he doesn't listen to you. You don't have credentials. You don't know what you're talking about. All right, so I'm talking about people who are in state universities who have accredited, let's say terminal degrees, doctor's degrees, in specialized topics. And they're not going to say Jesus was raised from the dead, but that's not what I'm looking for. I'm not looking for them to fall on their knees and trust Christ. I wish they would, but that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying they admit the data from which we get that. They think the data are true. They won't make that move. It's like if you said, so-and-so is a candidate for such and such office, and I'm never going to vote for that person, but I think these three things they want to do are very worthwhile. Can you make that distinction? They've got some good plans, but I'm not voting for them. These people aren't voting for Jesus, but they think that things happen in history. Okay? So granting the crucifixion, here's the 6 I would use. There are 3 sets of 2, 2, 2, and 2. The first set of 2. When Jesus was raised, he appeared first to his disciples. And about the same time, it's hard to separate these two. I'll try to do it real briefly. But he also appeared to James, his brother. Now, I would separate James from the 12 because we don't have any reason to think James was there with the 12 when Jesus appeared. Could have been, but he didn't hang around with those guys, and he didn't think much of Jesus. In Mark 3, Mark 6, and John 7, they all agree that Jesus' brothers did not believe in him. In fact, in Mark 3, the townspeople thought he was mentally ill, is the Greek, and the brothers seemed to agree with him. And they try to get him out of sight because it's sort of like, I guess the idea is he's embarrassing the family. So, Jesus appears to the 12, and he appears to James about the same time. One thing to keep in mind, there are many more group appearances of Jesus than individual appearances. Some of you know that's important because of hallucination theory and groups and so on. But there are very few appearances to individuals. We have the appearance to Mary in John 20. We have one to Peter in Luke 24. We have one to, and you're going to start running out of examples real quickly. James in 1 Corinthians 15, the only place it records the appearance to James. This is James, the brother of Jesus, not James, the son of Zebedee. So Jesus appears to the 12, and most of the appearances are to groups. Somewhere about that same time, he appears to James. That's the first set of two. How do we get that? Or where do we get that? Well, I already told you, most of the appearances of the 12 are in groups. So, yeah, but you're citing the Gospels, and that's a Christian citing a Christian. That's prejudice. Let me give you the testimony of Bart Ehrman, the atheist New Testament scholar. He says, I don't cite these things because they're in the Bible, and therefore I take the Bible seriously, and I'm quoting them because in the New Testament. He said, I don't think the Gospels are reliable, but there are a lot of things in the Gospels that are reliable, and I'm using the reliable portions. Well, that's the way I'm arguing. I'm arguing for the point that the critics admit, like the healings and the exorcisms. And Bart uses this example. I love the example. He says, if I'm doing a report on the Revolutionary War, do you think I'm going to cite George Washington? If I find his diary, or if I can interview Martha Washington, darn right I'll use him. That's how you do history. Oh, I know what you're going to say. He's an American, whatever, he's prejudiced. Sorry, that doesn't cut it. He was as important as anybody in this event, and I'm going to use George's testimony to do a Revolutionary War. Does that make sense? So Bart's point is, I won't use the Gospels indiscriminately, but I will use the portions in the Gospels that are the best attested. Now, that would be a whole PhD course, so we'd have to talk about how you do that. But I'll give you one example. Over here, this is Bart speaking. Jesus was crucified. He says virtually nobody questioned Jesus' death by crucifixion. Now, the Muslims do, but that's in a source 600 years later. I'm not trying to be mean, but that's not good history, to wait 600 years to have something like that. But you want to report something that's true. You know what Bart says about the cross? My third reason, independent sources. He gives 15 independent sources, many of them not in the New Testament, for Jesus' crucifixion within 100 years. That's fair. He says, I'm going to go 100 years. In a book I do in Historical Jesus, I go 150. In ancient history, that's a decent period of time to go. Not 600, but 100, or in my case, 150. And he gives 15 sources for the crucifixion, and that's why he says nobody questions it. John Dominic Crossan, co-founder of the Jesus Seminar. Marcus Borg, co-founder of the Jesus Seminar, the guys that reject 91% of the red letter words of Jesus. Those two guys say, here's Dom Crossan, he says, I take it absolutely for granted that Jesus was crucified by the Romans under Pontius Pilate. I take it absolutely for granted. These guys are pretty far to the left, and they're going to admit the crucifixion. That's not one of my six, but that's an example of accepting something that's in the gospel that has good backup. All right.